in the crunchy community, sometimes we get so fixated on making the right choices that we don't think about relationships and how we communicate with other people, family dynamics and relationships. To me, that is so much more important than the food we consume. You just have to get your priorities straight. And I think that gets out of balance whenever you're trying to be perfect, because not everybody has the same priorities.
My name is Lisa, mother of 8 and creator of the blog and YouTube channel Farmhouse on Boone. Join me as I share with you my love for creating a handmade home from scratch cooking and a little mom and entrepreneur life along the way. Welcome back to the Simple Farmhouse Life podcast. If you are a crunchy mom or you consider yourself in the health world in any way on the internet, you have probably heard of my guest, Emily Morrow from Really Very Crunchy. She shares hilarious TikToks and Instagram reels and YouTube shorts that she and her husband create. They're genius. They are so funny, very relatable, especially if you like that self-deprecating humor, which she claims she loves. And I obviously like it too, because I think it's so funny. She is actually crunchy in real life. And so she just released a book that talks about getting toxins and all of that out of your life, but without, as she says, making it part of your personality. Because we all know that sometimes these things can go to extremes. It can be overwhelming. It can be depressing and difficult to try to figure out in what ways am I going to damage my children's future health? What things can I let go? What things are things I simply must do? We're going to talk about all of this in today's interview. Emily, welcome to the podcast. I know so many people on here are going to be very excited to see you on here, as you are the creator behind the wildly popular Instagram. I know you're on YouTube too, and then I'm pretty sure you're probably on TikTok, but I'm not like a person who gets on TikTok very much, but Really Very Crunchy. So for those of you who don't know, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, of course. So my platform's called Really Very Crunchy, like you said. It was basically born out of my husband's observations of me trying to live my life as a crunchy mom. And he was like, okay, you are crazy and hilarious, and we should put this out there for the world, because I feel like you could really help a lot of people feel seen and make a lot of people laugh.
Yeah.
So I'm really not as insane as my character. I am definitely a crunchy mom, but not, totally inflexible like my character. But I'm a mom of 2 boys. I homeschool. I'd say I pretty much fit the mold of what you
the
think
stereotype, if you will.
Yeah, the stereotypes of the crunchy mom. I'm walking around, gardening, wearing linen, enjoying the outside, barefoot, all the things, cooking as much food as I possibly can.
Yeah, I was listening to you on another podcast, and I heard a little bit about the story of actually starting your account. And that surprised me a lot, because as the outside observer, I would have assumed that you came up with the idea, but really your husband came up with the idea, and then he even managed the account for quite a while before the questions got above his head. So that's interesting. Tell us a little bit about that. I know you already mentioned that it was his idea, but like he literally created the videos and you were just the character for a while, I'm assuming.
Yeah, we started on TikTok only. I'm also not a person who's really on TikTok. I don't have it on my phone. I've never had it on my phone. And so he was just posting there, and by our 8th video, our account exploded. And we were just getting hundreds of thousands of followers really quickly.
Right.
And so people would be commenting on videos and asking questions, but I didn't have the app. He was just like using emojis to reply. And it sort of drove this like mystery behind, who is she? And is she really crunchy? And
is she crunchy, or is she making fun of us? Because that's something I wasn't sure at first. And I also can't remember which one I saw, but what was your first viral one? Maybe that's what I saw too. It was a while ago.
Crunchy Mom at a Birthday Party was the very first viral one.
I can't remember if that's the one I saw first, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
so there was a lot of mystery around it. Like it was all very funny, very relatable, but then also like, I can't tell which side she's on.
Well, it's because I'm I love self-deprecating humor. My husband and I are both very dry, and so I think even in real life, sometimes my friends don't know what is reality.
Right.
They don't know when I'm joking because I'll just say stuff with a totally straight face, So it's been interesting, and I don't even really know that my account has made me crunchier than I was. Like I used to wear blue jeans.
Now people bring up stuff to you. Wait a minute.
Yeah,
you don't wear blue jeans now? I know that I'm nowhere near the crunchy of like the modern crunchy. And I think that's because I have had children for 15 and a half years and I was crunchy then. And there's this process that happens over time where you kind of learn the things you can get away with without a whole lot of, and of course there could be problems down the road that I'm not accounting for now, but you can only be so intense for so long. And I'm on the other side of that.
I agree. So I don't wear blue jeans in my skits anymore. I do wear them in real life, but not as regularly. And I have like gotten rid of blue jeans that weren't all cotton. I have purged my closet of synthetic fibers and stuff like that. But even in my early videos, I was probably wearing sweaters that were acrylic, even though I knew natural fibers were.
This is a whole new level for me. I could see why your husband was like, this is gold. This is gold.
Everything. And when you do try to fix everything, it becomes, you're just frantic and you cannot win.
Yeah.
And there's always new information. Like, for example, one of the most recent things, I wear frownies. They're like a forehead tape.
Yes, I have some. I never put them on, but I have them. I've had them for like 3 months, and so I probably never going to do it.
You should try if you. Yeah, your forehead looks great, but
I definitely have. Everybody in my family has frown lines from like 22, so it's not. I don't really care, to be honest, because I'm gonna always have them. But I'm like, well, I'd like to reduce it a little if possible. I'm not going to do Botox, obviously. So, but anyways,
that's how I am.
Something happened with frownies?
I started getting. Yeah, well, I don't want to say anything bad about frownies, but because I use them. I still use them, but people have been commenting, sending me messages like, well, frownies just freeze your forehead and there's not enough flow. There's not enough movement. And we need to know the specific ingredients. And I know that they use like a vegetable starch for their glue.
Okay.
And you're like, well, is it organic vegetables?
Probably not.
And I know, but like you can't hyper focus on everything or you'll drive yourself crazy.
See, that's why I gave up a long time ago. I gave up probably around the best time because it has definitely with the internet gotten way more intense. Like back in my day when I first started on Crunchy, if you just made your food from scratch, like you took ingredients and made something, that was like good. Like, of course, raw milk. We've been doing that since my daughter was a baby, or weaning, all of that. But like just from scratch stuff was enough. And I didn't even know half of the things that we see today that I'm like, oh my word, if I had to worry about all of this,
I know.
I don't know what I would do.
Yeah.
Because of course there's the balance of like, what's mentally this doing to me?
I know. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like there have been like ebb and flow of my platform where I feel, okay, I'm becoming that character. I'm becoming that frantic, stressed out.
Because you hear about stuff. People send you stuff because of who you are. You find out everything.
Everything. Yeah. People send it all to me. And it's, I appreciate it because it does drive some content ideas, but then also I do care. So I am taking in that information and adjusting my life accordingly or deciding, is this worth me making changes over,
Yeah. Like the priorities. How do you prioritize the information and decide what is actually going to be a big enough deal for you to change behavior versus just let that one slide?
Yeah. Yeah. Like for me, I'm letting the frownies slide. I'm wearing the frownies. I'm not getting Botox. It still is
Frownies is definitely got to be a better option than Botox.
Yeah. So, and that was one thing. I got your list of questions, like potential topics. And one of them said, what's your 80-20 or what's your 20 if you're living an 80-20 lifestyle?
Yeah.
And so I was trying to think, like, what is my 20? I know in previous podcasts, I've been telling people, like, sometimes we go to Culver's, but my mom just gave me a countertop ice cream maker and we made custard for Mother's Day, and I'll never rely on Culver's custard ever again, like homemade custard.
I am curious though, like side note, because I do want to hear the rest of your 20. What's the recipe? Do you put egg yolks in it? Because I've been needing to use up a lot more eggs, and we don't always put eggs in it, but I'm like, we really should.
And heavy cream. I mean, I'll send it to you, or I don't know. You could post it in the show notes.
They're going to ask though, so we'll put it in the show notes. Yeah.
It was a chocolate, and it was so good. It was so good.
Oh yeah, we make ice cream. I mean, I'm going to say, I don't think I'm exaggerating, 3 or 4 times a week, but we don't always put egg yolks in it. My daughter thinks it's not as good, but I'm like, we have a ton of eggs, and I think that we should. So I want to hear your recipe. So anyways, back to your 20.
Yeah. So it totally, I was like, well, I've been working out wearing leggings. They have 3% spandex in them. Is that a 20% thing? Not really for someone else. Your 20 is going to be different based on how crunchy you are.
Right. Yeah. Like that wouldn't even cross my mind.
I'll occasionally let my kids have like a Yum Earth lollipop. That to me is a 20. But to someone else, that's like...
We're living in different worlds, Emily.
Or I buy...
Yum Earth would be like in the 80s.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I use disposable floss.
Yeah.
But it's like PFA free and, BPA free and...
I would not have known to count that
stuff, but it is disposable. So... I think, it's hard. Okay, it's a weird question because I feel like it just totally depends on your life.
Yeah, it's very.
My husband went and got donuts from a local donut shop on Mother's Day, and I totally
legit regular donuts
because I guess like the 20% is having the freedom to make a choice in the moment without stressing over it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think what happens to me over the years, and this just could be because I'm lazy or stressed or I don't know, but I always kind of, after initially getting worked up about stuff, I always notice that it doesn't ultimately, like when I count like these minute things, seem to make that big of a difference to our life, our energy. And then of course you throw in the people, like, oh, well, my grandpa was 96 and they did this. And so then you do that. Not that that means it's good, but ultimately I'm trying to think like, what will worrying about this little tiny thing gain me? But then you wonder if our world is entirely different than grandpa's was. Like he was just crunchy because that was all that was available. And so you don't want to overcompensate for that.
Totally. And I really think if you're making changes, the important thing is that you don't do it out of stress. You just make changes or choose a healthier lifestyle because you want to. And if it is causing you stress, then you need to step back. But when you're deciding to clean up your diet, you can easily make choices as they make sense for your family without it becoming something that you're obsessing over.
Right.
And I think that's the key. Back in the day, they're just like eating whole foods more,
Yeah. Even the bad foods weren't as bad as they are now because they just didn't have those ingredients. And a lot of the things that you mentioned, I don't know when spandex came around. I don't know. But what was in the clothing before a certain year, So maybe we do have more to worry about. I was listening to your recent podcast, or maybe somewhat recent, and you guys were talking about analysis paralysis. And because of all the information with the internet and all the different choices and options we have for literally everything, something like you guys were talking about raised beds and then what materials are we going to use? What are we going to fill them with? And it turns into this massive thing that should have been pretty straightforward several years ago. So how do you find that balance? And what did you decide on the raised beds?
I know I said in that podcast, I was like, I'm making my decision tonight. And what I decided was I'm
Yes.
actually not buying any more. I am going to that was sort of a cop out.
A cop out, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was like, well, I'm not going to make that decision right now. I'm going to go another year without expanding. I have been planting more in the ground. So I just tilled some more spots and will,
Okay.
hand weed, I guess,
Right.
this year. But
yeah,
I mean, that's how it used to be done. And I didn't feel like I had enough that I was planting to justify buying more. I could have planted more, I guess, but I didn't.
No, I know it's hard because there's a lot of information. Budget is always a concern, and to find the best option, especially when there are so many, can be really challenging. And I think a lot of us struggle with analysis paralysis on so many things. And when you really break down all the tiny things that you probably get sent in your inbox because you're really very crunchy, it ends up like those things you were mentioning about the compost. I have to say, it didn't cross my mind at all. Like, we just fill ours with compost from the local nursery. Like, it did not occur to me that there could be, and of course we make our compost too. So it's a mixture. Like, we originally filled them with compost from the nursery, and then every year we top it off with the compost we're making all year. But like, even that, I mean, if the food you put in, it's not 100% organic, like, I don't know, it's a lot.
It's so hard. It's almost impossible. And you just can't sweat that stuff. Do what you want. Like, my mom is using that compost from the city, and she listened to my podcast, but she hasn't said anything. But I told my dad, like, don't mention it to her. He was like, yeah, because our yard and our gardens are full of that. And I'm still going to eat vegetables that she grows. It's going to be okay, probably her vegetables, freshly picked right there, even if they're grown in that compost, are going to be way more nutritious and healthy than the organic stuff that I can get at the grocery store.
Yeah. And
so
I think
old,
there's something too with like picking the vegetable, being grateful for it, seeing it as a healthy thing, and your mind believing that, even if it isn't perfect, but almost not knowing in a lot of ways can be better. Like, I'm just thinking about my husband's grandma. She's still alive. She thinks that like a diet of canned green beans and canned carrots is like a good meal. To her, that would be better than having meat or eggs. She's in her 90s, or well, no, she's almost 90. But she, back in her day, fat was bad. So of course she puts margarine on it, or butter was bad. She doesn't know the new information. And so when she sits down to this meal, she feels like, yes, I am fueling my body. I am making a wise decision, because I know that that's why she eats canned vegetables for dinner. She thinks it's a good thing to do, and she wants to nourish her body well. And I'm wondering if even just the thought has carried her through, like has nourished her, because she sits down and she's really like believing she's doing something good, and there's all the good, positive, attributes.
I can totally see that.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's something to that for sure. My husband's grandmother is still alive. She's in her mid-90s, and she microwaves styrofoam and eats
I'm
off
sure
of it.
She microwaves too.
Yeah, you can see the styrofoam melted.
Like going
and
into
I'm
it,
like, Anne, you shouldn't do that. And she's like, well, I'm 90 something.
Yeah.
And you're not.
I pass what like almost everybody else does. So I must be doing a pretty good job.
But to me, I'm like, but they didn't have styrofoam when you were my age.
Like you haven't been accumulating that for 95 years. Like, yes, in the last couple years, maybe your body can handle that. But what if we're doing that for every meal? Yeah, I think that's why it's a good conversation to have, because we do want to fall back on those anomalies, those people who outlived what they should have. And then also we forget that they just didn't have a lot of that available. Like even GMO crops, I'm pretty sure that started in the 80s. So I was born in the 80s. So I'm a test case, I guess, for this because, we don't really know.
I know. Yeah. And just like all the soy and all the hydrogenated vegetable oils.
Yeah. I had soy formula. That's what I was raised on my whole first year. I spit up all the regular formula. And so they gave me soy formula. But even that, like, that's like now knowing about like the hormonal aspects of soy, I feel like I would have thought now, like, oh, well, then I probably messed up my fertility and all this stuff. And like, I have 8 children. So even that, like, I was raised for my whole first year on soy. That's all I consumed. And I'm fine. And so I try to remember that. Like, it's not saying we should do that. I'm crunchy too. Like, I definitely take care to source the raw milk and all this stuff. And, you know, our parents did not know, they didn't have that information. So you do with what you can, but also like if a few things, you know, are not what ideal. Yeah. It can be okay.
Definitely. I totally agree. Actually, there's a girl in my forest friends group, and her husband is not on board with expensive crunchy. He's cool with her like buying fruits and then using the fruit, like dehydrating her own fruit to make snacks for their kids. You know, like he's on board with making healthy choices, but not on like spending a ton of money, because you can totally do that whenever you go down the crunchy path.
Yes.
But I don't think they buy organic food, but I'm looking at her kids. They're like the picture of health,
right? Never
really sick. Because she's cooking her food from scratch, even if she's not using all organic everything, you know, she's still making those healthy choices. So it makes me wonder how important those things are, rather than like focusing on, is it organic? Is it perfect? Is it just do with what you can?
Yes. And, I know what you're saying. Yeah. Because in my early motherhood, we would not have been able to afford to do expensive crunchy, just from scratch, basic ingredients, mostly not organic, you know, at that time, with what we could. Local farms when possible, but even that, what kind of grain were they feeding the cows? I don't know. I didn't look into that. I don't know.
Where's the end? Where's the end?
Yes. And that's what your book is about. So you just released a book in March it's called Really Very Crunchy, A Beginner's Guide to Removing Toxins from Your Life Without Adding Them to Your Personality. And I love the picture on the front. We got it. And my husband and I both thought it was so funny. Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, right here. If you're watching the YouTube version, you can just tell it's a comedy, but also you do share your story with all of this and how to find that balance. And I think so many, especially young moms, I feel like are trying to find.
Yeah, as a young mom, I felt very judged in several situations. I start my book by telling this story about how I gave this girl some soap as a gift, and she pulled it out and she was like, this is actually so toxic. And I thought it was a cleaner hand soap. And in that moment, I just felt so belittled and like, how can I make the wrong choice on soap? And I never wanted to be that person where I made someone feel so small, especially when they're doing a kind gesture, you know?
Yes.
And so in the crunchy community, sometimes we get so fixated on making the right choices that we don't think about relationships and how we communicate with other people and how that, you know, our family dynamics and relationships, to me, that is so much more important than like the food we consume, or, you know, you just have to get your priorities straight. And I think that gets out of balance whenever you're trying to be perfect, because not everybody has the same priorities.
Right.
I felt like there was a need for this book, and also the health space can be so heavy. So bringing comedy into it and relatability just makes it an easier pill to swallow, not to use pills as a, that's probably not the best.
Wait, now are we talking about pharmaceuticals, Emily? Yes. And I think one of the most challenging things that I've encountered, and a lot of people ask me about too, are those social situations where, you know, it's kind of a niche to be crunchy. And most people are going about their life not worrying about a lot of things. And so you go to the birthday party, you go to the grandma's house, your kid's grandma's house, and they're offered something and you have to decide, is this social interaction more important? Like, are we going to stop going to this? Because I have been there earlier in my motherhood where I thought, okay, every time I go here, they give them this. So therefore we can't do this anymore. That relationship, burning that bridge would have been worse for my kids' health, probably even, than allowing them to just have it. And so it's tricky. And I totally understand what you're saying with it being one of the bigger challenges. Is that one of the questions you get a lot from people, is how to navigate those relationships that revolve around food and
and I
things.
think the important thing is to be vulnerable and open with those that you love in a calm moment, a neutral moment, not like right when they're trying to give your kid something that you don't approve of.
Right.
But if you kind of lay the groundwork, set your expectations, and then if they need help following through, like I used to buy treats for my parents that they could give my kids.
Right. Yes.
And then they learned kind of what I'm okay with. They still kind of mess up, sometimes quote unquote mess up.
Yeah, right.
Because they're just not even thinking about it. They're not reading every single ingredient, and that's okay. But unless there's a true allergy, obviously. But I think
yes, that's
like our family that loves us, they want to do what we want. You know, if someone loves you, and as long as you're kind and you have this open communication,
right,
then it should be just like any issue that you have to approach. You just make your wishes known in a kind and calm way, and then hopefully they'll respect that. And if they don't respect that, then maybe they just need help respecting that, because I don't think they're trying to make the wrong choices.
Most aren't. I will say I have heard stories and scenarios where some people enjoy taking somebody who they think's annoyingly crunchy and then sabotaging that. That does happen. But I think for the most part, I agree with you. In most normal families, you can set your expectations, you can communicate that. And then also you can, if you care, you can bring the food, bring the snacks, bring the treats. And that's usually a good way, to navigate that if that's a priority to you.
But it doesn't have to be a priority. If you are okay with grandparents can feed your kids whatever, then that's fine. You don't have to obsess over it, especially if it's not all the time,
Yeah.
You can either choose to make it a priority or not, and then communicate your expectations, just like you were saying.
Yeah, yeah. I want to tell you about something that we love in our home and we have for so many years, long before I started a podcast or a YouTube channel, and that is Azure Standard. So Azure Standard is a way for you to get bulk ingredients, natural ingredients that you probably can't find at your local grocery store for a really great price by pooling together with other people in your area, ordering together, and then meeting at a drop location. So if you get on the Azure Standard website, azurestandard.com, and find a drop near you, you will likely find that there are several options already established that you can choose from. At least that's the case for where I live. Place your order, and then you'll be emailed a time where everybody's going to meet and get some amazing quality ingredients into your kitchen. So for example, some of the things that we get from Azure Standard: bulk cheese. I have so much cheese in my fridge right now, organic, raw. I love sourcing that from Azure. Bulk butter. I keep extra in the freezer. So I have some in my deep freeze. I have some in the inside freezer. Never want to run out of butter in a from scratch kitchen. Produce, whatever is currently in season and on sale, I get from there. We get animal feed, spices, bulk spaghetti even, grains, flours, so many things that I regularly purchase from Azure Standard to stock my pantry and make sure that we have the things that we need and are high quality. Azure Standard is offering Simple Farmhouse Life listeners 15% off with the code SIMPLE15. Now this code applies to first-time Azure customers, 15% off a minimum of $100 or more product order with a delivery to a drop location only. Again, Azure, AZURE standard.com. Use the code SIMPLE15. I'm curious, what are some of your non-negotiables? And do you have like some set things that we will not partake in this, or is that kind of just on a case by case basis?
Definitely dyes. We just don't do dyes because my older son, I've let him have dyes, and it's a crazy transformation. It's not like a physical allergy. He doesn't get a rash or anything or have any symptoms like that. He just goes crazy. His behavior is almost an immediate switch, like 30 minutes after consuming dyes. And I learned it probably when he was about 3 or 4. And so since then, it's just like, no, it's not worth it to me. It takes several days for him to get back to how he normally is.
Right.
And then also excessive screen time. Mm-hmm. That's something we avoid. Our kids watch something on Friday afternoon, and that's pretty much all the screen time we do in our family. But again, my older son, he has this personality where if he gets too much, then he like becomes obsessive over it, and
I have one like that.
It, and it's not worth it. Other than that, we're pretty flexible and open, and I want my kids to enjoy experiences with their peers, like going to the trampoline park. I think about the stuff that's on trampolines and
we go too, and I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, you're right.
And all the I don't know, the not just the physical risk, but all the chemical makeup and whatever. But my kids have been invited to parties there, and we go and they have fun, and it's great, you know?
Yes.
So no, I mean, very few non-negotiables.
Very few, like, this is a hard and fast, we won't do this. I heard on, you were on Abby's podcast, M is for Mama, and she was talking about, I think you guys were on the subject of getting recognized out in public, and especially getting recognized in places that aren't crunchy.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that. Like, do you ever, you're out to eat with your family, maybe you're on a trip or something like that. And of course, you know, you're not going to find high quality options. Is that something that's kind of weird, being really very crunchy?
Yeah. But my husband always tells
me. Or grocery shopping.
Yeah, I know. Even just grocery shopping. People have like walked up to me with my cart, and I'm like scanning my cart, like, is everything good in here? Yeah, well, everything is good because I really am only buying good stuff. So
yes.
But my husband's always like, Emily, if you're doing something and someone sees you, like, for example, I mentioned going to Culver's. Anytime we go, which isn't that often, I am always recognized, and someone wants to take their picture with me.
But they're there.
That's
too,
what he
aren't
says.
they?
He's always like, nobody's thinking about it. You're the only one thinking about it. They're here enjoying it. So just
they're there. They're at Culver's.
So not that you'll find me there anymore.
I think it's so
now
funny.
I've got my countertop ice cream maker. So
yeah, that's what you needed Culver's for. There was this, you know, Jim Gaffigan, he's a comedian, but he did a skit about McDonald's. I think it was Jim Gaffigan. But anyways, it was like, we like, McDonald's is the bad one. Like, if you said Culver's, but if you would have said McDonald's, we would have been like, wait, like Culver's, you know, Chick-fil-A, those are all kind of fine, but like McDonald's. And Jim Gaffigan was joking about that. He said something like, oh, I'm just here picking up a hooker. Like basically if somebody sees him there, like, I'm not here to eat, I'm just picking up a hooker. It was just so funny because what's with that too? Like, you realize Chick-fil-A, like, I just need to tell all of you right now that if you think Chick-fil-A is better, and I'm not above it, like, if we're traveling, we literally just got back from a trip Sunday night, and like, we know when we go to McDonald's, we can get breakfast burritos, we get like 20 of them, and a couple of oatmeals for a few of the kids. It's just really easy, really fast, and it works. Like, when we're out and about, like, if we're on vacation and there's nowhere to eat breakfast. But like, for whatever reason, there's this shame and cloud over McDonald's, but like, Chick-fil-A is like healthy. And it's not any better, right? I mean, how could it be?
Yeah, I actually got recognized. We went to Nashville a few weeks ago, and we went through the Chick-fil-A drive-thru, which to me is even worse, like even less crunchy to go through the drive-thru because they have all the like extra bags and all
Yeah.
the things, like just, and there's so much plastic, so much waste.
Yes. So much waste. Yeah.
But the person in front of us recognized us.
Oh no.
And I ducked my head down. Yeah. I was like, I don't want them like taking a picture of me here
And then
sitting
they're
in
going
the
to put you on
Chick-fil-A
Reddit.
drive-thru.
r/really very crunchy. Not so much.
I know. But I'm fully aware that it is not a healthy option, but that's okay occasionally.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not above Chick-fil-A.
yeah,
I just think it's funny that people think it's better than McDonald's.
People think it's healthier.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
I like
it's
Chick-fil-A
not.
too, and I love how fast they are. So if there's like a moment where we need, well, usually my first choice is Jimmy John's because I can order it on the app, grab the bag. It's like the fastest thing ever. But second choice would be Chick-fil-A because they are so fast. They can get you through there. So I just think it's funny that like moms who are against McDonald's are for Chick-fil-A. It's really funny.
I know. It's somehow they posed it.
They have.
Somebody was a genius marketer there. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I've just always thought that was so funny because any fast food restaurant doesn't have that same, like the McDonald's is the ultimate. If you go there, then you've given up on life. Okay, tell us a bit about your process for creating all of your reels and your TikToks, because some of them I'm just like, how do they come up with this? Like, where do you get the idea? Do you script it all? Like, how does that work?
Sure. A lot of times I'm living my life, just living, and then something just strikes me like, this is hilarious. This could make such a funny reel. So then I'll take it to my husband and I'm like, how can we amp this up? We do definitely script almost all of our videos. We find that to engage people and to hold their attention, things have to be pretty quick. And if you stumble...
Yeah, on Instagram and TikTok at least. Like in my world, I do YouTube. It's a whole different thing. But yeah, on those platforms, it's like you got to get them in there.
Our short form. Yeah. So even on YouTube for us, we're pretty much right now in the short form game, I guess. So yeah, we have like 1 minute to get out what we want to say.
The message in an entertaining way.
Yeah, the jokes have to be sort of seamless and we want to say the exact thing that we're hoping, so.
Yes. Yeah.
It just helps for us to script it out. And then we also do a lot of comedy with our filming, like the facial expressions and the zooms and Jason looking right at the camera.
Right.
The office style,
Yes. Yeah. Documentary.
Comedy. Yeah. We try to write it sort of like, if you ever watch those shows, before an episode, they would have like a 1 or 2 minute little intro to the episode that doesn't actually go with the episode, like a cold open is what they call it.
Yeah. Kind of like The Office. They do that.
And so that's how we view our videos, like a little cold open that we have to write.
Okay.
So we, a lot of times will just bounce ideas back and forth. And that's really how we make the best videos. A lot of times I'll have a concept, he'll script it out and then give it to me and then I'll infuse it with more crunchiness.
Right. The crunchiness aspects that you only know.
Yeah. He'll leave blanks. He's like, say crunchy thing here, say crunchy thing here. And then when we're filming them, I film him and he films me and then he edits them. He's such a wizard with editing. So it's totally like, he is way more involved than people would think.
Than it appears. Yeah. Well, there's so much behind the scenes. People would never know. Because also, you guys do this full time, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is our full-time job.
I'm also a full-time content creator. My husband's been home for 6 years now. And whenever you only see what the content creator puts out, like you just see the final product, you don't see anything behind it. That looks pretty darn easy. Like, what do you guys do with all your time? I know that's not true. But people might think that.
It does. It takes a lot of time. And even just engaging with your audience takes time.
Right.
Answering
all that stuff.
Emails, messages, but then also coming up with the content. We work with some brands because that's a big part of our income is getting brand deals, which then people give you flack about.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you sold out. But really, it's just like, how do you want it? It feels a little frustrating at times because I want people to enjoy our content and I want to be entertaining. But in order for us to create the quality that we create, we have to do brand deals so that we can
because it
takes
full time to do all this. And Instagram and TikTok and YouTube Shorts don't have the creator fund. I mean, they do on YouTube, but to get the amount of views you have to get to make any money versus like the long form videos, you're not making money through ads.
No.
So in order to make money to be able to support all of this content creation, which again, it looks so easy. Once it's all done, it looks like you and your husband just had a conversation. Like it just happened. Yeah. And if somebody doesn't know the behind the scenes, it seems like, well, why would you need to support with that? But obviously I understand. And it's also really challenging as a content creator to not always defend yourself. I struggle with this because I see certain comments and I'm like, if you only knew. But then I just like, I've tried to realize over time that it doesn't get received well anyways. Yeah. And so there's just always going to be some misunderstanding. Has that been a challenge for you to just deal with the negativity that could be out there and just let it go and not think about it and not have to constantly defend your position?
Yeah. Well, I think for me, one thing that I can always fall back on is it's comedy. If you're super offended by it, then you probably don't understand that it's comedy.
Yeah. True.
So that kind of helps me. Like I was asked to write an email for Proverbs 31 Ministries. They send out like a daily Bible study and I wrote a little devotional for them. And one of the comments on my devotional that I sent out in this email was, as soon as I saw her picture at the top, I could not receive this message. She is so judgmental. Yada, 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 yada. And it was
so she's not understanding it.
You
clearly.
don't get the joke then. And that's fine.
Yeah, you didn't get the joke.
Or maybe you don't like comedy. Or maybe it touched on a sensitive topic. And sometimes I feel like when we feel offended, that could be like a nudging of, do I need to make a change? Is there a reason that I don't feel good about this decision? If you're not confident in the choices you're making, but also it's comedy. So most likely.
Well, and that helps for you to have a bit of a wall. Like yours doesn't feel as personal because it's not your life. It's a character that you're the face of, which does make the whole creator relationship with the followers maybe slightly different than what it would be for somebody like me, where it's more tied to my actual self. Now, to an extent, there is a character in my videos because I'm not showing everything. Like people always say on my videos, well, where are the kids? And I'm like, listen, there is a couple hours per day during a nap in the afternoon where I can film. And so if I film a little bit each day, then it appears to you that I never have kids around when I just filmed, and so I struggle with like constantly wanting to explain myself because I just get so tired of, seeing the same comments and I'm like, you just don't know the behind the scenes. But how has that been for you, finding the balance of like the feedback from the audience?
Well, I think it's kind of weird because originally, whenever we put out our videos, it was only for entertainment. But because I clearly have studied things and have made choices in my life, I have personal opinions in my real life. Right. So people want more education from me. And that's sort of where my book was born. I'm like, okay, you want some like real information about how I do things, then I write this book, and it's still infused with comedy, but it is sort of more personal. And
and then the podcast.
And the podcast, personal. Definitely. You get to see like a full hour-long conversation about who I really am and my feelings on things. So it's kind of weird to balance, where is it satire now and where is it real? But I think like generally if somebody's watching my stories, they know that it's more real and more me on Instagram. And then reels are more scripted. And I think you can kind of tell the difference. You can see how I'm talking and the cuts and everything. So it's been kind of weird, but it works out. And I've made a lot of really great friends and great relationships through content creation.
Overall very positive.
Oh, yeah. And I'm so grateful.
But yeah.
My husband has always, his dream always has been to work for himself. And I think that is sort of what was driving him to create this platform is he could become his own boss. And that has happened only because people show up for my videos and comment and like and are so generous.
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, I'm really grateful for the opportunity, and it's been wonderful for us, a huge blessing, but definitely a weird blessing.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've had a very fast rise to fame, if you will, because you started this in what?
2022.
Was it 20 or 21?
22.
22. Wow. See, I'm a dinosaur. Like I started my business. I started this whole online thing in the end of 15. And so for me, it's been a very gradual thing, whereas, you know, you came in hot with just blowing up. And so it's probably been a little bit of a shock to the system, right? Like, you know, now you're out and about and people recognize you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, but I will say this, we've been content creators, just not quote unquote famous ones for 15 years. We started in 2010. So that's how we've honed our skills, and we've failed a lot for a very long time. So it wasn't just totally instant. This just hit, you know, we finally found something that stuck.
Yes. Gotcha. Well, and that's encouraging too for people who want to do something like this, because a lot of people would love to turn a business like this into their family's full-time business. And they might have been plugging away. To not see you as an instant success, I think is a bit encouraging, because you've had to figure out before all of this, like, yes, now you landed the thing that gains the audience and the viewers, but you had to learn how to storytell. You had to learn how to use a camera, edit. There's been a lot of behind the scenes that people don't see. Again, with not understanding what all goes beneath this very tiny thing that you end up seeing as a finished product.
So are you recognized a lot out and about?
I am. Yes. I don't know if it'd be as much as you, but I mean, pretty regularly.
Yeah. Do they come up and they're like, is that how most people start?
Yeah, typically, yeah. Yes, we're in Virginia. We went to Colonial Williamsburg last week, and I met so many people there. You can kind of tell when it's going to be, and I'm sure you're this way too, when you're more likely to see people that recognize you based on sort of the location. Like there's certain areas I'm like, oh, there's going to be people here because there's homeschool moms. Maybe it's like a farmer's market or somewhere healthier. That's where that you'll run into somebody. But yeah, I definitely do run into people all the time, but it's been more of a progression over the years for me, because it hasn't been viral growth so much as just like very steady growth.
Slow and steady. Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, also, yes, it's an interesting world, isn't it?
But it's so cool, because I know, especially you provide so much inspiration and so much help for moms who want to nourish their families well, who want to live a cleaner, less, more non-toxic lifestyle.
Yeah, like the how-to.
Yeah.
The practical application.
Yeah, that is so nice and helpful and wonderful. And I'm sure you've changed countless lives through sharing your content. See, I don't know that I've changed any lives other than making people more stressed out.
Oh, I'm sure. No. I am sure you have, especially with your book too. That's, like you said, that's such a valuable resource that shares the story behind what they see. And then also the podcast is fairly recent, correct? Like you're fairly new on the podcast?
2 weeks in. Yeah, just 2 weeks in.
Oh, okay. I think I saw you had like 8 or 10 episodes, so I wasn't sure how long that had been going.
We posted several all at once. Yeah, and now we're just doing one a week. So
okay. Yeah. Oh, every time I have somebody on here that they and their husband work together, I always like want to know more about the dynamics, because that's something that's pretty unique. I mean, it's becoming more common because with the internet, there is the opportunity for that. But yeah, I'm always curious to here, it sounds like you guys share a lot of the whole thing. And then you have your Instagram, your TikTok, your book. Are you working on, and your podcast, are you working on any other like products or offerings?
Yeah, I'm about to come out with a children's book, which I'm really excited about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's about inspiring independent play and infusing your daily rhythms with independent play. That is one thing about my children, and I think it's because of their lack of screen time. They are so good at playing. I think
Yeah, that's definitely lack of screen time.
Yeah, maybe just because they've been bored. I don't know, but do
you give your kids a lot of freedom too? Like, just unstructured, just have at it kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, we live in an area where it's safe for them to go out on their own, and they've been going.
And that matters.
Yeah,
yes.
It does matter. So they just go outside and spend a lot of their days out there playing, coming up with their own games and whatever, it's really convenient in motherhood that they can entertain themselves. Obviously there's fighting and sometimes.
I think like for a lot of moms, that idea is almost too good to be true. Like you think you have to entertain your kids at all times, or you're doing something wrong. You're not building the relationship properly if you aren't sitting on the floor, always playing with them. And that's something that I've noticed is a more recent thing that moms think needs to be done. And so to hear that they can, it's almost too good to be true. Like, wait, you can do stuff whenever your kids are just playing? That's something that I think a lot of moms need to hear.
Yeah, definitely. I was a little nervous when you were going to start talking about my homeschooling philosophy because, I mean, I do homeschool. My kids are really young, 6 and 4.
Oh, okay. So
it's very early in the journey.
Yeah.
But a lot of my philosophy is let them play. Let them play.
Yep.
Use their imagination. They're going to learn so much that way and build so many skills like problem solving and even physical skills. Like I have a few friends who are more structured and don't get their kids out, and I can see like my kids' physical ability is much greater.
Okay, so we noticed this too.
Really?
Yes. My husband has pointed this out. He was like, I don't want to like, share too much, but he's just like, what's the deal with some kids? Like, because ours are like rough and tumble. Like they can climb to the top. They can, and I think you're right. I think it's having that unstructured time.
Yeah. To just be and to develop. And we're not always going to think of the best activities for our kids.
Right.
Because we are adults. Like we're out of it. I can't always get my brain there to like get into the imaginative state that they're able to.
I absolutely cannot. Yeah.
So,
some moms are better at that. And I think dads are pretty good at it.
Oh yeah.
But like my brain, I'm way too serious. And that's just how I am now. And my kids have noticed because my one son was like, oh man, that'd be so fun. I was like, listen, you can do that when you're an adult. You can do that thing, like whatever it was something that like he really can't do. And he's like, yeah, but when I'm an adult, I won't want to because adults don't know how to have fun. And I was like, oh, sorry, buddy. Like, it's kind of true. And I'm not saying I don't have fun, but like, I mostly am just serious. Like, I got dinner to make, and like kids know how to have fun. And he was like, I guess I won't want to do that when I'm an adult. I'm like, probably not.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm pretty goofy and I do have, moments of craziness with my kids, but even in my 30s, as I get, older, I'm 35. I would say when I was like 31 even, I was more able to quickly get into like the state of playing and silliness.
Yeah.
And as I get older, the harder it is. Like sometimes I even feel annoyed about it. Like I don't really want to be playing right now. I have other things I need to do,
Well, that's just it. Like as my family has grown, if I'm not in here making food or, tidying up or whatever, there's just, there is a certain amount of time every day that I have to do that. And I do have fun, but I think he knew that I wouldn't want to do like that reckless thing, whatever. I don't even remember what it was.
Yeah.
But it was something I was like, no, you can't do that. And then he was like, yeah, I guess no adult would want to do it either. Pretty much.
No, I feel you. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. I am curious. I wanted to ask you, like, are there certain types of content that is going to resonate with people, or that is going to cause controversy? Like, I'm sure by now you have that pretty gauged. Like, if I put this out, this is the kind of reaction I'm going to get. What seems to be the hot thing?
Are you trying to get me in trouble here?
I guess so. Sounded entertaining.
One of the hottest, I try to steer away from it just because we've done 1 or 2 videos about it. Mentioning formula feeding is just so
I could see that.
Triggering.
I've learned that that's controversial too. Yeah. Triggering. Yep.
And then I was kind of starting content post-COVID, so I missed all of that hot debate.
You are one lucky girl. Let me just tell you.
I know.
That was a time to be alive.
I know. I'm glad that I wasn't in the game then.
Yes, you did not share things you shouldn't have and whatnot. Yes.
But there are still things about like well visits and things like that.
Okay, that stuff is hot.
We just don't really talk about much.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I try to avoid all that too.
And my husband, he thinks like I am far less controversial than he is because he likes to stir the pot. He's like, that is what makes it funny. If you don't have any conflict, then it's not funny.
Some people can deal with that. I'm too much of a people pleaser. I know that for a fact. So when I know people are upset with me, I cannot stand it. But like my sister, she's also a full-time content creator with her husband. She kind of just thinks some of the comments are funny, and she genuinely does. Whereas I'm like, ha, funny, but like, I kind of hate that. Like I can't just brush it off. And so I am definitely way too much of a people pleaser sometimes for the internet.
I was really like, I would just spiral over these people's opinions of me and just like lose sleep over some of the comments that I would get in the early days. But I've gotten so many terrible comments, so many horrible messages.
Yeah.
And now I guess I'm just sort of numb to it because it's like, well, you don't have to consume my content. If you don't like it, then you don't have to. I'm not forcing you to watch my videos. I totally love and appreciate those who do watch them and enjoy them. If you're not one of those people, that is fine. There are a lot of different content creators out there that you can go find your, whatever floats your boat. So, I used to be, and I still do hate the when people, go off on me, whatever they're saying. But I don't read as many comments on all the platforms that I used to. I pretty much read them on Instagram. And a lot of times I'll just read them the day that I post it. So I miss it when my video goes out to the broader audience.
Yes, that's always a problem. Like whenever it's not your people and it starts getting pushed with some virality, that's when you see the uglies come out. Because I also think it's sometimes people who are scrolling too much on their phone get suggested it, and they are so living in the world of the internet that their brains, like they're just hateful people because they're so unhappy. And so then once they get a hold of it, it doesn't matter what you said, you did it wrong. That's
There was this one video that I posted where I said, it was sort of a meme video, which we don't do many of those, but I use cocoa powder for dry shampoo. And so I have chocolate dripping down my head in the video. And then I use activated charcoal sometimes for makeup. So I have it smudged under my eyes. And then I use elderberries for lipstick even. And so I had like an elderberry stuck in my teeth. And one of the comments was like, how are you making fun of people with gaps in their teeth? You're so mean, whatever, whatever. And I was like, oh, that's just an elderberry in my teeth. It's not, I think someone with gap, my son has a huge gap in his teeth and I love it. Like it is so adorable to me. So it's just so funny how sometimes things aren't perceived the way you're trying to make them. But that comment got like so much love from me responding like, oh no, that's not what I meant at all, has like way more likes and comments than her initial dig at me, you know? So sometimes it is valuable to defend yourself a little bit.
Well, especially if you were taken totally wrong. And I think that is one of the hardest things about putting things out on the internet is you intended one thing and then it was taken another way. And you almost can't even watch how all the stuff if you're putting out a lot of content, you can't constantly be watching how everything's going to be taken. And so it's hard whenever people do misunderstand it. And I'm with you too. The positivity far outweighs the negativity, but somehow our brains tend to remember. I guess because we know that they're all good. All those positive people, they're good. They don't need my help. They're good. They're happy. But then it's like the ones who aren't, it's like, well, we got to make you happy. You can't be hanging out over there all upset at me.
Yeah. I agree. Have you had any major, like, have you made the news or, you know, been in any big mainstream?
See, I try to really not watch, like, I know there's like gossip things like crazy and people have tried to send in me. And I'm like, listen, my ear, like I am not going to pay attention to that. I have had people email me like, what they said about you, I'm sure isn't right. And I'm like, it probably isn't, but I don't need you to tell me about it because I really don't want to know. So I try to stay very, very out of it because I am such a people pleaser that I will lose sleep over it. Like I cannot take that. Like I can't take people thinking something about me that isn't true.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
You're so lovable, Lisa. Probably Why would anybody hate you?
Because it's the internet. You know, you're so lovable, Emily, but do you have people? Yeah. It's, oh man, it can be, yes, it is. It's such a blessing. And I always try to remember, this is what I do for my job. This is such a privilege, an opportunity, a blessing. And yeah, trying to not worry about all of that because it is such a good opportunity. But yeah, it can be a challenge. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. But like you said, huge blessing.
Yes.
Wonderful opportunity. And it's kind of funny because whenever you are a content creator, you get way more praise than anyone else at their job. Like,
and to be honest, sometimes that's overwhelming though. Like, do you sometimes feel like people, they'll say such nice things about me that I'm also like, you know, like,
no, not that good.
That's too much. Like, just so you know, I'm like completely regular mom. You know, I don't deserve any of that. And that can even be uncomfortable because it's like a standard you feel like you have to live up to, you know, like, got to keep making that next really good reel. And heaven forbid the next one isn't as funny as the one prior. Have you felt that pressure at all?
Oh, yeah. And I totally look at likes, and I'm to the point now since my platform has grown. I mean, I have almost 500,000 on Instagram. I'm mostly just talking about Instagram. But like, if I don't get 10,000 likes on a reel, I'm like, this was a fail.
Yeah. Even though that would have been such a good performance a year ago.
I know.
But now.
Yes.
Have you heard of the gap in the gain theory or the gap in the gain? There's a book called that. And it's basically looking at where you've come and not always like having to strive for that next. I think it's the gap in the gain. Have you heard of that?
I haven't, but I want to look it up
for you to. Yeah, add that to your list because I don't think it was about content creators, but it definitely applies because you're always can find yourself in that trap of, I now have everything I wanted, and yet I'm still trying to push and grow and fall into that trap, which is what you don't want to do.
That sounds really interesting.
Well, I am super excited to binge listen to all of your podcast episodes. I did not realize it was that new, but I have not listened to all the episodes yet. So I'm looking forward to that. Tell us about your podcast, your book, and where everybody can follow up and find you.
Yeah. We have made it so easy to find us because everything is under the same name, Really Very Crunchy. It's the name of my book. It's the name of our Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Podcast is the Really Very Crunchy podcast. So whatever you're interested in, just search Really Very Crunchy. You can find our short form on all the social media platforms. And if you want to find the book, you can search that wherever you buy books. Yeah, should be pretty easy to find. We also have a website, reallyverycrunchy.com. So all of the information would be there as well.
Cool. Yeah, that does make it easy. Just Google it and then find your preferred method of listening or watching or whatever, or both, because sometimes you're in the mood for some high quality content. That would be all of your short form. And then sometimes you want to listen to something while you're doing laundry. And I'm really enjoying it. I think it really was cracking me up, to be honest, because your husband kind of eggs you on a little bit with some of the things that maybe he finds a bit ridiculous, and it's pretty entertaining. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for asking me to be on. I really appreciate this. I've been a longtime follower and fan of yours, so it's really cool to get to talk to you in person.
Yes, same. All right, well, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I know I did. I think I could talk to Emily for a lot longer. Really enjoyed the conversation. You can go check out all of her offerings, her book, her podcast. I can't wait to binge listen to the podcast because what I've heard so far is very funny, very good. All right, well, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Simple Farmhouse Life podcast.